Alright, what is going on YouTube? Welcome back to another anime live action news update video for you guys. So this is kind of a surprise because it came literally out of nowhere. We actually got a new live action show coming from Netflix that's going to be an adaptation of Kakegurui. So I'm just going to get right into it and then we'll dive a little bit more into my thoughts and how this could go afterwards. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So as of February 18th, 9:30 a.m. 2025, the official Netflix anime Twitter dropped this post. It says, "Bet, a live-action adaptation of the thriller manga Kakegurui from Homura Kawamoto and Toru Naomura, comic serialized in Gangan Joker, published by Square Enix, is led by showrunner Simon Barry, who did Warrior Nun. A boarding school for the global elite where underground gambling determines the social hierarchy is upended by the arrival of a mysterious transfer student." And then it's going over some of the cast, which I do apologize if I butcher these names, but we're gonna try. Starring Miku Martino, Ayo Solanke, Eve Edwards, Clara Alexandrova, Hunter Cardinal, Anwin O'Driscoll, Aviva Mangio, and Ryan Sutherland. Again, I do apologize if I mispronounced any of those names of the cast that's currently been announced, but I tried my best. That's all we've got in this post, and so far all that we know officially announced from Netflix themselves. So yeah, I know everyone's first initial reaction is probably, who asked for this, right? And why are they making this? I think it's kind of interesting because if you look back on the history of Kakegurui, when the anime first came out, I remember that it got licensed by Netflix specifically for the streaming license outside of Japan. So I remember when it first came out and you wanted to watch it, you had to watch it on Netflix. And honestly, I don't know exactly why. I think Netflix was just starting to dip their toes into anime around that time. And the whole aesthetic of this show, of this anime, is the red, right? So I think Netflix was like, there's a lot of red in this show, we're kind of vibing with that red aesthetic, maybe we could just associate this show with our brand with that red end. I think that's kind of what they were thinking, and they were like, But ever since then, they've kind of held on to the streaming license if you're not, watching this show in Japan. So I remember having to watch season 1 and 2 on Netflix. So it's kind of funny how now they want to make a Netflix live action adaptation of this show. It's just interesting, I find, that they have some kind of connection to this. Like, Netflix itself seems to have taken a liking to this anime series in particular. And I just find that really interesting. Like, they secured the license right away and they didn't let it go, even for season 2. And now they're like, we want to make a live action of this. I think that's kind of interesting. And I legit think it's just because of the show's aesthetic, and a lot of the design just kind of mixes well with the Netflix aesthetic and design of like their branding. Hey, maybe there's more to the story of why, but as far as I can see, and like my guess is probably just that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's just kind of funny and it's kind of cool. But yeah, now we need to talk about, is this show going to be good, and is it a good decision to even do? Now, I'm not gonna lie, I was looking at some of the comments of this post, and the first thing I see is like, because there's some black actors and actresses in the cast, people saying, oh, woke, it's gonna be bad, whatever. And I mean, it is what it is. Like, I don't really think that means it's going to be bad. My first reaction was the fact that they were changing the name entirely and they were calling this show Bet. Like, at first when I read it and it said Bet, like this new adaptation is coming out, I was like, oh, is Netflix saying Bet, we got you? But no, Bet is the actual name of the show, which, I don't know, I guess in a way, because it's already kind of a lingo people use, maybe it could catch on, and they were thinking, let's call it that because people already use that lingo, so it'll catch on, and it's shorter, it might be easier to pronounce than Kakegurui, right? So I guess there's reasoning behind it, or you can make the argument that there are good reasons to call it this, but in my opinion, I don't think they should change the name because I feel like, I don't know, I mean, it's an adaptation of Kakegurui. I think it should be seen as that. I feel like calling it Bet would make it seem like it's not exactly paying homage to the anime and manga series, but that's just my initial, reaction from it. I'm not saying that they don't plan to do that, and I'm not saying that that's their intention. I'm just saying initially my first reaction to seeing this post and seeing that they changed the name to Bet being the name of this adaptation, I was like, okay, that's kind of, taking a little bit away from the original source material, but that doesn't mean it's going to be garbage, because upon looking at like the cast, it does seem like they are going for something a little bit different. Yeah, so in the original series, it takes place in Japan, and the people that are in the academy are children of Japan's wealthiest and most influential people. So with this cast, it seems like that's not going to be the case. So already, some of the identity is being changed. But again, I don't think that this necessarily means it's going to be bad. It's just, yeah, it's definitely not going to be a direct adaptation of the source material, and the fact that they're changing the name kind of seems like they're going even less for a direct adaptation, which I feel like they don't have to feel the need to stray so far away from the source material, because the source material is really cool, and I think if they were to make a direct adaptation, it would be really cool. But since they're kind of leaning away from source material, I don't know exactly how to feel about that. And I feel like a lot of what makes the series entertaining to watch is what happens like in the source material. And I do think the concept itself of like having all these people at this like elite academy and they're like gambling against each other, and a lot of crazy stuff happens, I think that concept can definitely fit into a different setting. It doesn't have to be like all of Japan's wealthiest people and everybody has to be Japanese. Like I feel like that concept can definitely fit into a different setting with other characters from other parts of the world or whatever, right? And I guess maybe that's what they're going for, who knows? But I do think the concept itself can definitely work. And I think the reason why I'm kind of looking forward to this show, again, the fact that they're kind of steering away from the source material, that doesn't really excite me. But that aside, the reason why this does kind of interest me is because if you guys didn't know, we already have gotten a few live action adaptations of Kakegurui. We had a live action drama that aired in Japan from January to March in 2018. And then we got a second season of that drama that aired in April 2019. And then we got a live action film that had the same actors from that drama that came out in May 2019, and then a sequel to that film that came out in June 2021. But these were all Japanese live action adaptations, and I feel like most people haven't seen them. They haven't seen those live action adaptations of Kakegurui. Like I've seen a few people in the comment section of this post saying, oh, well, why are they making this when there's already a Japanese live action? That's true, but let's be honest, most people haven't seen that Japanese live action. And I feel like most people probably never will because, where are you supposed to watch it, right? If you're trying to live in this day and age and watch stuff on all these different streaming services, I don't think you're gonna have a great time finding those Japanese live action adaptations of Kakegurui. Unless you're in Japan, of course, but you know what I mean? Like if you're American, you're probably not going to have a good time finding those if you wanted to just watch them on your TV or watch them from whatever streaming service you like to use. So most people probably haven't heard of those Japanese live action adaptations of Kakegurui for the sake of the argument of there's already an adaptation, right? And again, I think that this concept could work extremely well in live action. Just the concept alone, like taking the source material aside and, the direction that they could be headed aside, I think the concept by itself could definitely work really well in live action. I think the style of Kakegurui that we've seen in the anime could be really, really cool to see translate into live action. But will they take a lot of those cues and, character traits from the anime and actually portray them in this new live action adaptation? I don't know. I really don't like the name Bet the more I think about it, but whether I like it or not, is it marketable? Maybe. We'll see. I think it'll be interesting to see as well if they decide to like change all the outfits, right? Because, in the original anime, right, they're all wearing that red, school uniform. If they're going to change this adaptation up a bit, are they gonna go as far as to change the outfits as well? Because at that point, I feel like it is maybe not so much an adaptation anymore, and more so just a new show that's really inspired by the source material. But I guess that's kind of a different topic or a different discussion for a different video, which I will probably end up making. So if you guys are interested, definitely stick around, subscribe to the channel. And hey, while you're here, you might as well leave a like. I'm just saying, if you're this far in the video, I can already tell you're enjoying the content. But yeah, I'm not trying to judge too harshly on this initial post. You know, the casting choices, again, seems like the whole Japanese aspect is being taken out entirely. But again, I don't want to judge it too harshly just because of that. Again, it depends what they're going for. And, you know, I kind of want to wait and see what they decide to do with this. But like I said, I'm not too fond of the idea of steering away from the source material, even going so far as to change the name. But I do feel like Netflix does have a strong love for this series, so it's not that surprising that they would try to do a live action adaptation of this franchise. And honestly, I've been watching a lot of different shows on Netflix lately, and I'm gonna be real, some of them look really fucking good. Like, even if you watch a show on Netflix that's like maybe not your cup of tea, or maybe you don't end up liking the story or whatever that much, I feel like at the very least, you can't deny a lot of those shows look really good. Like, they got that budget, bro. I've been watching the show You, actually, because a lot of people were recommending it to me. And yeah, I mean, the show just, it looks really good, you know? And I feel like a lot of Netflix shows tend to look very good. Like, the budget is there, right? And I feel like sometimes when it comes to Japanese live action, the look of how those shows end up feeling tends to be the issue, right? Like, a lot of those dramas that air that are Japanese live action adaptations of anime typically don't have a crazy budget. So the look of them doesn't really feel, you know, like a huge Hollywood budget show, right? And I think a Netflix budget show of this anime that's an adaptation could be fire. Like, it could be extremely fire if they do it right. And I think this is something, again, we probably wouldn't get from the Japanese live action adaptation. I'll probably have to make a separate video going over those adaptations and what this adaptation could do better. But yeah, that'll probably be a different video. So yeah, if you guys are interested, you already know what to do. Subscribe to the channel. But that's probably going to be it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts about anything I had to say in the comments below. Please leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. That would help me out a ton. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. And I'll see y'all in the next video.